Oh no, how can it be Thursday? How can it be 6 o'clock again? Hi, everybody. I'm Russ Kane. Beautiful day today. Beautiful. Couldn't get over it. Thursday, 6 o'clock means just one thing. It is the ABC of CBD. To my amazement, show number 69. Incredible. Incredible. All due to this person. He is the Maharaja of marijuana. He is the hunk of hemp. He is the count of cannabinoids. You know him. You love him. Ollie Mammon.
Hey guys, riddled with technical issues today. I feel like I'm Russ. It's ridiculous.
That's not nice.
Well, you always have technical issues.
Well,
They're
have you
kinda
not
new for me.
noticed? Have you not noticed,
The crisp,
Mr. Saki,
clear.
that since I've had the fiber optic finally 2 years late installed, much to my thrill, the pictures, it's just so much better. It's just fantastic. Life changing.
It's really nice. It's actually like I get to see you in HD. It's quite lovely.
It is in HD. Yes, it absolutely is in HD. Right. Enough from me. Shall we? Oh, I've got to find. Right. You chat, and then I'll find.
So you were in my dream
find the
last
ad-
night, Russ, just to let you know. How
ooh,
weird is that? How strange is that shit?
ooh, was I?
So I was in a restaurant. I looked over and I saw you, and we had a little chat. And I woke up and I was like, still haven't met.
You still haven't met me.
But in my dream, we had a little moment. The first dream of mine you're in.
Oh,
Please God, may there be many more.
Shall we say hello to our sponsors, and then we'll.
Sure.
Please God, I'm pressing the right
Roll
button.
it.
Probably not.
I'm sure you've heard before that good quality CBD needs to be really, really expensive. This is the new view of CBD, a product created by users for users, a product at an affordable price, available everywhere, at any time, at the simple click of a button. Just CBD and MCT oil. No additives, no preservatives, and no flavor enhancers. It's a simple subscription-based service. The cleanest possible CBD delivered to your door for the lowest possible price. Your product, your rights for the lowest possible price.
If we ever do meet after 69 weeks, when you walk in, someone's got to play that advert because I won't know it's you otherwise.
No, fair play.
Just got to play that.
It's not like you'll recognise me.
No, I won't. You're probably 4'10" in real life, and
That's
on
really
the
mean.
screen you look 6'2".
I'm like 6'4", but thanks a lot, Russ.
Are
Anyway,
you 6'4"?
on with the show.
Here we let's go straight up.
He's insulted me now. That's
jeez. Here we go, everybody. Hold on to your hats. We're in for a bumpy ride. Good evening, Veronica up in Edinburgh, and then David Green. Hi, good evening, gentlemen. Oh, how little he knows us. Hi, David.
So we got a cool guest today.
We have. Okay,
We're joined by my running partner. We're joined by my running partner, my partner in crime, the man who's been on this mission with me the entire time. Very excited to have him on the show. So I'm going to give my little introduction as I always do, because
of course,
even though I work with him and see him every day, he deserves just as much praise as the other guests we've had on the show recently. To be honest with you, probably more, because he's had to put up with me for 7 years. But we'll deal with that in a second.
How's he saying?
I can't actually believe he's actually agreed to spend his evening with me, as well as the days he spends with me. Literally insane. But anyway,
he's been with you for 7 years. You would have thought, my God, no, thank you, but no, here he is.
It's taken 69 weeks to convince him to come on the show, but he's finally here. So I'm going to give my introduction, then we can bring on Nate and we can hear his story. Good,
right? I'm agog.
Fine. So over the last few weeks, we have focused on the community element of the cannabis industry, the fact that without patients, we have no community, and how close to heart stories are the driving force for so many people in this industry, whether approaching from a medical, commercial, or emotional angle. The commercial journeys of the guests we have hosted have been shaped and formed by their personal and emotional experiences with cannabis. Take the last few weeks. Eddie Milner spoke about the interactions with his grandfather and how cannabis gave his grandfather the end of life he deserves so much. Eddie is using his position as a medically trained professional to create a system that betters patients and that puts patients' needs first. Jade from Savage Cabbage, whose life was saved and changed for the better by this special plant, has gone on to help thousands of others, guiding and nurturing lost souls who need advice or comfort when navigating this sometimes complicated world of ours. Ed McDonald from the Cannabis Pages, who eventually found hope through the canopy of green, now provides information to patients looking to navigate and understand the maze of what medicinal cannabis is and how the medicinal cannabis market could help them to find a to find a cure, to find help for their ailments. All of our guests have taken their difficult experiences as a mold for what the industry is missing. They have analyzed and dissected their journeys, and they have created paths for others to find more simple routes, because cannabis products should be accessible and no one deserves to be in pain. Our guest today is no different. Plus, he is very special to me personally, as he is my business partner, my journey partner, and probably the only person who could have put up with me for 10 hours a day for 6 to 7 years. It's taken me 69 weeks to get him onto the show, and I'm so excited to have him here today. Over the last 6 or 7 years, Nathan has been my running partner. From a cottage industry operation, we scaled to being one of the largest manufacturers of cannabinoid products in the world, which is pretty mental, if I may say so myself. Along the way, we picked up some other great partners, and now we've built a company that is still synonymous with our original mission statement: accurate products with a purpose and a transparent service. And this is for one reason. Just like me, Nathan is a patient first. He's had a slightly different journey to me, less mental health issues and more physical degradation issues. But being a patient and knowing firsthand that every end consumer of every cannabis product, being an end consumer, that every end consumer of every cannabis product, and these people actually rely on these products, it means more to them than completely screwed that up.
Take two, love, still rolling.
Take two. And
thank God it's not live.
Okay.
And action.
So he knows about being a patient firsthand, and that every end consumer of every cannabis product actually relies on that product. It means something more to that end consumer. It's their relief, it's their salvation, it's their coping mechanism, it's their medicine. It's something important to them. This changes the way you approach the deal. It changed the way we approach this market, and it made us think differently about the products we were creating. It made us act differently, and it's probably why we are still here and still thriving. As Eddie Milner stated last week, there has been a systematic change in this market where there is too much focus on money and not enough focus on the people using the product. Jade said the same thing. Too many individuals in our market are financially driven and not thinking about the end consumer, the actual patient. The community element of this world is dying, and therefore so are so many of the businesses involved in this industry on both the medical side and the commercial side of the cannabis market. The customer is not being thought about. If it wasn't for people like Nate, Jade, or the Eds, the cannabis market would still be in a place where people feel lost, alone, in hiding, uneducated, and probably still suffering. As a patient, it's hard to guide yourself through the noise and towards the sound that's right for you. This is a reoccurring theme we have seen develop and emerge over the last several years. There's been a lot of brand turnover, probably because people forget what's actually important in this cannabis world of ours. The notion of community, the importance of people. Companies forget why they first got involved in this world in the first place. They forget that they heard a story of how cannabis actually changed someone's life. They heard a story about how cannabis actually saved their life. There was a functional action which made people realize this is a world worth getting involved in. It wasn't a transaction. Nathan is a founding father of the UK CBD market, whether he likes to admit it or not. He was one of the first people involved in this industry of ours, and he's still here, more motivated than ever before. I say Nate's a founding father for one reason. Because why he entered this space. The emotional foundation of his involvement was for a real purpose, to help others, as he was helped by this miraculous plant. He wanted to create a system where people like him didn't need to hide or be ashamed of how they coped with pain, how they medicated, how they dealt with their ailments. He wanted to change the narrative surrounding cannabis and also help to change lives for the better in the process. Nathan came into this market with a mission, and he has stuck to it. It has always been about the product helping, increasing accessibility and increasing the understanding through education around cannabis. Why? Because end consumer is all that matters. Why? Because Nathan is an end consumer as much as he is a facilitator. Nathan and I started working together in 2015, but his journey with cannabis started a long time before that. His relationship with the plant is an extremely personal one, and his experiences with cannabis changed his life, both physically and personally. And honestly, his experiences with cannabis probably changed my life too. It would have been a very different journey if this dude wasn't by my side the entire time. So I just want to welcome on my close friend, business partner, and legend, Nathan Walkman.
Thank you very
Now,
much, Ollie.
Nate, I have to immediately ask, on behalf of a wondering audience, how did you meet Ollie?
Well, my best friend is Oliver's older brother, so it was, and we often talk about it. Oliver was the toe rag younger brother that used to hang around and want to get involved in the room. Let's say when Jonathan, Ollie's brother, and I were consuming our medicine, shall we say, at quite a young age. So the relationship that I have with Ollie is extremely special, is very deep rooted, and I think it's as close to family as we can get. And I think that's what, among many different things, that is why the relationship is so strong, and why
Is he as
that's
nice?
why I've been able to tolerate it for so long.
Well, this is what I was going to ask, because I only have to tolerate him for 60 minutes a week, and you've been with him 5 days a week, if not more, for 7 years. That's a testament to both of you.
Very patient man. Very patient man.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. Anyway, welcome along. I'm going to butt out now, but I just had to ask.
Thank you.
So Nate, the point of bringing you on this show is because I know that's one thing you haven't really spoken about much over the course of your 7 years in this industry, is actually your history with cannabis and your struggles as a patient, your struggles with your ailments. It's not really something which very often gets brought up. You are more of you call it the business figurehead of ours, and you very rarely dive into your personal affiliations with cannabis. But I always thought it's such a shame, because you have this incredible story, and that's the main reason I've been nagging you to come on the show over the last 2 years. I'm glad I finally got you here, because once you did it, you did one video with Sam Cannon where you kind of opened up a little bit, but I just thought it would be quite nice to kind of hear your story and get your take on why you are why you are such an affiliate of this world of ours, and driving forces behind you, and what's led you to become what you have become in this industry, and a well-known advocate, a well-respected voice, a position of knowledge and power. I want to know the backstory and how you basically got to become, where this driving force came from. So I thought the first question I always like to ask everyone is, what was your first experience with cannabis? It's like my go-to question. I get to ask you now, which is great. So what was your first experience with cannabis? What age? What were the effects? Et cetera, et cetera.
I can't pinpoint a specific day, moment in time, the first time I had my first experience with cannabis per se. I just remember it being a particular time in my life. I think probably 16, 17 years old, probably. I vaguely remember, but after school or otherwise, with friends trying this product that heightened my senses and relieved this kind of underlying feeling of physical pain, which I have always kind of struggled with. And I think that last piece, without kind of jumping into it too early, but I think it took me a long time to realize, the medical effect it was having on me, whilst only really realizing or feeling this kind of psychoactive thing, with not actually realizing the benefit that was giving me. And I suppose it's funny in kind of the introduction that you made, without wishing to go too much off piece, but I think, as bizarre as it may sound, there's still a huge social, and I'll go business, stigma that surrounds the subject. And despite being by job title the CEO and certainly joint co-founder of a business which is entrenched in cannabis, I find myself, like I say, caught in this stigma of not really wanting to kind of discuss the story, because I feel like it creates a kind of a stigma. And I'd like to, I think that's quite an interesting.
That's very interesting. Even now, and it's your livelihood and it's completely legitimate. You feel a bit sketchy about, talking about
I think, look, there's a fine line, obviously, because as a business, we, CBD is fully legal, and as Ollie's explained over these last 69 weeks, one of many different cannabinoids which I find benefit in. But I suppose my use of cannabis is always something that I feel like I need to socially hide.
So let's go back a little bit.
Because Ollie doesn't give them. Ollie, sorry, jump in. It's because it's a really important point, and it's a theme, Ollie, which has come out many times during the last 69 weeks. Because you don't give a monkeys, you're very open about it. Other people have said, "Well, I feel like I should be hiding behind the bike sheds or something like that." And it's extraordinary, isn't it? It's
this
still
whole idea
stigmatized. It's still, to use your phrase brilliantly, demonized.
This whole idea of like the closeted cannabis user, whether for recreational or medicinal uses, like this whole idea of people hiding in the shadows when they consume cannabis it's a massive fact. And there are so many secret sufferers out there. There are so many people who, are afraid to ask for the help because of what they think will be said about them when they ask. If I turn around and I ask someone for help, are they going to judge me for wanting help in this capacity?
In fairness, though, may I just say, on all the other shows that we do here on Men's Radio Station and Women's Radio Station, a lot of people feel that they will be, let's use the phrase, judged, which is the worst thing. You shouldn't ever say that, but they feel they will be judged if they go and ask for help, which of course is not the truth. You won't be judged.
Not at all.
You'll be given the help. You really won't be judged. Now, Nate, I can ask this because you two are very close and we're not, obviously. You said you were in pain. You started smoking and you were in pain. Was that a physical pain, or was that some anguish you had, or what?
No, I was born with a birth defect which affected my ability to walk. It's known kind of colloquially as club feet. Your feet are interned. And from a very young age, I was surgically manipulated to have straight feet. And by sort of definition, by doctor definition, they were bent. They're now straight. You are corrected. But it transpires 35 years ago when I had the surgery that it was quite rudimentary at the time, and I suffered in that age. I believe it was kind of 15. I had a relatively normal childhood, no particularly good at sport and couldn't run fast. But by the age of kind of 15 or 16, I think you go through that growth spurt, and from that
you do, yes,
moment in time. So there was a period of pain, but I can't really. I didn't realize that there was no one else in excruciating pain by standing on their feet for 30 minutes. So I was kind of living with this pain without realizing it was something that was abnormal. Then kind of my 20s was kind of absolutely fine. And then at kind of a critical age of 29, 30, I suffered with significant degenerative issues in my ankles, and from a really active kind of West End commercial property agent stomping the streets of London, I was told to change career. Kind of a whatever the word is, a particular marker in my life. I just had a young child, and it was really quite it was discombobulating. And not quite the story, Ollie. Sorry for
no, but it's important.
No, it's important.
No, Nate, you're wrong.
Don't apologize.
So it's very important because these are all personal journeys.
Yeah.
that all Ollie's guests are personal journeys and
Yeah.
personal stories. And I think it makes you more three-dimensional rather than your Ollie's business partner and your business is
Yeah. No, I
CBD oil. So it's just interesting background as well.
And I really want to share that personal story because it's the reasons why people choose to opt for cannabis over other conventional medications. So let's go to that point in your life. Let's go to, let's say, the age of 30. I assume that you didn't just stop the property. You were going through immense amounts of pain. What were the treatment options for that? What was the medication you were being offered? Were you being offered opioids, or were you being offered literally nothing? Were you kind of left just to kind of suffer in silence, or was there like, were you seeing doctors, etc., etc.?
Well, I was aware I was in a significant amount of pain. The only doctors that would be prepared to see me and talk to me, when I say considerable amount of pain, just to put it on a spectrum, there are days then, and certainly days still now, that I'm in so much pain that if I could walk in the next room and someone say, "Can I amputate your right ankle today?" and you just won't feel the pain anymore, I'll gladly take that. And then on the next day, it doesn't hurt anymore, and it's like, I can't believe I was thinking that way yesterday.
Oh my God!
So I had this at 30 years old. And the only people, however, at a GP level or a consultant level, you're kind of medically corrected, and there's very little that they can do for you, because you fall into this kind of weird space. I went to go and see ankle and foot specialists, which are really surgeons, and there are various different options that you can have to effectively create no flexibility in your ankle and leg, and you walk with a limp and a walking stick. So the options are extremely limited. And tongue-in-cheek, the doctor sort of said to me, with the condition that I was dealing with at 30, was, if you leave it long enough, the bones will rub together, the pain will stop, and you'll be pain-free. And I suppose taking a few steps back from the age of 30 and going back to the time where Ollie's older brother, Jonathan, and myself were working in property at a time that all our friends were at university. And frankly, we used to smoke a lot of weed in the evenings. And I used to kind of justify it in my mind, and interesting use of the word justification, but I used to smoke this weed in the evenings, kind of knowing that that's what my friends were doing at university, and I was getting close to a university life whilst working. And in reality, when I look back at it, I was medicating. I was taking my medicine to take the stress of the pain of the day off. My feet were up, lying on a bed, watching TV, not thinking about this kind of thing. And I think, obviously, having joined most of the 69 calls, the videos previously, and my somewhat reluctance to be on the call, is there are amazing stories out there with people that have got terminal illnesses, with debilitating, truly amazing stories, amazing things. And it's in my opinion, it took me a long time to understand that me using cannabis in that way was a medical use. It's not recreational. It's not like going to a bottle of whiskey at the end of the night to forget your things and not dealing with it. It was genuinely helping me. And I'll just sort of continue and say to you that it was about that. So it was about that time, going back to that kind of age of 30, spending a lot of time with Oliver. And I'd heard from Ollie directly with Ollie, the things that he was doing from a caregiving perspective, and some of these miracle stories about this ingredient that had been called CBD and other cannabinoids. And I remember him telling me an amazing story about some caregiving he'd given a woman, and was able to, and I don't remember the finer detail of the story, not to devalue anything, but Ollie was, through the medicine that Ollie was able to create in the very room that you see behind him, was able to put cancer in remission, save someone from cancer. And I just picked my mouth up from the ground, because Ollie Mammon, the little toe rag that was knocking around his brother and I, throwing us all off of our game, was saving people's lives. And I'd heard through Ollie's brother and Oliver that CBD was a compound that would help and is found in cannabis. And Ollie and I procured some of this raw material. Ollie created lotions, potions, vape pens, other things. Some products worked for me, other products worked for him. Some products worked for me, others didn't work for him. And we had a real product of purpose that really helped. And I'm a huge believer in fate, and it brought us all together at a particular moment in our lives where I got an opportunity to do what I've always wanted to do, which I think everyone wants to do, is help people be good in the world. And you know what? Profit and making money is not a bad thing as far as I'm concerned. And I wish I could have been a teacher. I wish I could have been a doctor or ambulance gear, whatever it may be. But the financial reward wasn't there. And to really believe in a product, to really understand its purpose, to then build a business. When you talk about a kind of genesis story, and I've always got to stop myself and think, bloody hell, that's a good story. And it sounds like it's almost made up, but it's all of these things that have brought us to where we are and where the value is of the business. But
yeah, sometimes there's a plan. I mean, sometimes there is fate stepping in, and sometimes it's just random serendipity.
Luck.
Let me put you on the spot, Nate, if I may. This is week 69 of this series, all dreamt up by your business partner. I'm just a passenger here, as I always say. Have you even though you're right in the middle of the business, have you learnt things?
Learning every day. And I think, I'm more so, I think where I'm learning is 7 years ago, Ollie and I didn't have a business. Today and again, it's funny when you sort of say it out loud, Ollie, and I listen to what, the way
it's mental though, right? It's just like, are you serious? Like, how have
you
we done this?
You got to pinch yourself. And I think really where I learn, and we've definitely seen this kind of first wave of brands coming to market. The bubble, as far as I'm concerned, is absolutely burst from a commercial level. And now we've got that second wave here. Where I'm learning, I think where the market is learning, is that you need to have products of purpose. You can't just bring to market, I don't know, Russ's CBD with 25 different products and expect that you've got a business.
I like
you
the
need
sound
to
of
have,
that.
So I think
that.
it's kind of I learn every single day. And in particular, I think it is the education which positions the brands best and certainly positions us best.
Do you share a vision? Do you two ever sit down and share a vision and say, this is where I want to go? And have you ever said, I want to go down this left?
Russ, I think it's just about doing things properly. I think that's kind of like our basic rule. Like, it goes on this logic.
That's a great answer, but not every.
Let me finish.
When people get together, they don't always do that, do they?
It's the logic that we're both patients. Now, we're both patients for different reasons, but that is the core ethos of why we both ended up here. I started designing products for me, and then I designed products for him, and then we designed products for other people, etc., etc., etc. And it created this logic behind our actions, and our actions were always kind of defined by this purpose. If there was no purpose, then there was no action. And it's what I said earlier about how there was like an effective action, an effective like there was an effect from the product. That's what made us click in. It wasn't it wasn't the transaction of the business. And it wasn't a transactionary business. It was actually like trying to find something that actually made a difference. Now, I want to go back a little bit because Nathan made a comment that he's watched 69 episodes and he's listened to stories and about how, there have been some real stories about how cannabis has been really miraculous. Now, at the end of the day, okay, if a miracle is small or a miracle is big, it's still a miracle, and someone finding, an answer, someone finding a cure, someone finding salvation, someone finding hope amidst the darkness, whether it's a speck of hope or a beam of hope, you're still finding something which didn't exist there previously. It's still a miracle. And also, the fact of the matter is there are more people out there who suffer from what Nathan would call small issues as opposed to what other people would call massive issues. And fact of the matter is it's more often than not we hear about the people's whose lives when like they were on their deathbed and then they were saved. Yeah, that alerts you, but most people are not on their deathbed. So what happens is you hear that story and then you're like, I'm not on my deathbed. When I'm on my deathbed, I'll try cannabis and it will save my life. But in reality, you have an ailment now, and your ailment now could be saved and could be helped and could be cured by this miraculous plant, by this broad spectrum of small and large miracles, all of which have this ability to actually change a life. And that's what a miracle is, isn't it? Anything which has the ability to positively change someone's life, which they weren't previously expecting. Something which comes out of nowhere can actually impact in a daily in a daily routine, which is previously negative. Something which brings a bit of positivity to that is a miracle. And I think it's quite important that stories like Nathan, stories like mine, these small issues which were like which were helped by cannabis, which manifested these journeys afterwards, are as important as proud.
But they're not small.
Saving her own
Sorry,
life.
they're not
And
small. They're not small. I don't agree with you. Neither in your cases. I understand what you're saying against the great thing that you've got a few months to live. I get that. And you're saying, well, I don't feel so great. My ankle's killing me. Not in the same league. But to you, they're
It's
not
a miracle.
small. And they're not.
The fact that
I don't find them small
No,
issues.
but
If you're in
I think
agony, they're not small.
What is quite well, I suppose what I wanted to explain is really, I think, where the moment shifted for me in kind of really understanding that the line was blurred between recreational use and medical use was actually when Ollie and I, in the very early days, went off to America at a time in different states where cannabis was not recreationally available. You had to procure a medical marijuana card to go into this dispensary.
Yeah.
And at the time, I thought it was a complete joke and a kind of legislative way to get around this ecosystem, and no such thing really existed. And I sat online with this person, procured a medical marijuana card, went in, and then ultimately went into America, went into one of these dispensaries, and behind the counter was a bud tender. And I laughed. I laughed in my head. It's like, come, this is complete farce. What do you mean a bud tender? And it'd say to you, like, what's your ailment? And I'd be like, well, like, sorry, I'm a kid in the candy shop here. Like, what do you mean my ailment? Just give me the strongest shit, basically. And the guy said to me, or like the tastiest thing, he said, no, like, what's your ailment? What are you here for? I like to get high. He goes, but no, you don't just get high. That makes you a drug addict. You don't get high. What are you doing it for? I said, well, he said, do you have insomnia? Yeah, I've got jet lag. Also, I've got a bit of insomnia. He said, right, you need this purple punch thing because of this terpene profile. Anyway, I pretend that it was a medical thing. It wasn't. That was kid in the candy shop day, and I walked out with my bag of stuff. But I remember turning around at that moment, and quite literally behind me was a queue of people. There was someone in a wheelchair that was unable to lift their own arms. They had one of the sort of the joysticks to move backwards and forwards, and someone with them. And he bought what I thought was gimmicky. He bought these Listerine, do a brand of them. There's what these breath strips that dissolve on your tongue. And I remember being the person before that person in the queue thinking that's just a complete farce. And then I left, and I realized, and this person took it and left. And then I was like, oh my God, this is actually a thing. And I remember, and then I don't know if it's the same trip or otherwise, I was in Canada for business. Won't get into the cigarette habit that has crept back into my life, but got out of the airport, wanted a cigarette before we walked in, went to the smoking area, lit up, and a guard ran over to me as if I was a terrorist, saying, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm smoking." He goes, "Well, you're in the smoking area." I said, "Yes, I'm in the smoking area." He goes, "No, that's cigarette smoke. That's the 4th floor car park at the top, at the back. This is cannabis consumption."
What?
Because it's recreationally legal. People need to take their medicine. Why should they be inhaling tar and poor product next to the cannabis? So I went upstairs, had the cigarette, came back, and it was this big smoking section, but not in the Amsterdam cafe, pass it around joint thing. It's people taking their medicine before they go on a 10-hour flight. And
Wow.
my mind was blown from that point, because, and it was explained to me when someone said, "Oh, you're a medical user, no recreational." Somebody said within this trip, no, you might think you're recreational, but why do you do it? It's all for medicine. And it was that was the moment when you see areas that prohibition doesn't exist, that there is no stigma. It's the opposite of stigma. I don't
So
know.
this is what Jade said a couple of weeks back. Jade Proudman, she mentioned on the show, she said, like, she loves going to America, she loves going to Colorado because of the vast spectrum of directional product and the knowledge which is held by the cannabis consultants in the shops. How the knowledge behind the product makes it a patient-focused system. What happened, you know, like, and this is exactly what happened to Nate the first time we went to America, but Nathan didn't go at it from a patient perspective. He went at it almost thinking, almost expecting the whole thing to be a scam, but then realizing it's not.
Yes.
And when you actually look at the system and you see the vast spectrum of directional products, and you see the education and the thought and the logic that's gone into creating these specific targeted, directed products for specific purposes, you start to get a lot more of the education, a lot more of the understanding of why this system could be so beneficial to so many people. And I wanted to ask Nate a question.
Before you do that, sorry, let me just jump in. Chrissy, I don't think we can discuss this on the show. If you want to contact Ollie direct, it's not something we can do on Men's Radio Station.
Chrissy, I'll be honest with you, my growing expertise are not great. I suggest you watch YouTube videos. There's like all the information's out there. You'll be able to find it. Or go on to
just type exactly what you put in there into YouTube,
into Google,
and you'll be fine, Chrissy.
Yeah, you'll get all the information you need.
They'll give you a step-by-step guide. That's in Spain, by the way, and this is good news.
It's legal in Spain.
Would you get into a ring with a bull otherwise? Veronica Curran says, Ollie, I've been offered a consultation, 30 minutes. She says, Purple Punch, terpenes, my saviour.
She loves them.
And Chrissy in Spain goes, okay, thanks. I think that's the best.
Sorry, Chrissy, right. I'm not trying to push you away. It's just not my field of expertise.
No, because you'd have to do it very quickly.
However, once you've done your grow, you want to talk about what to do with the product, you give me a call. Okay, I'm just joking. Basically, so Nathan, when you were in when you're in America and you've had this realization, you start to see the system differently. Did it make you see cannabis differently? Going back to one of the first points you made about how you, as a closeted stoner, still saw cannabis as being demonized, even though you weren't, even though you're using it medicinally, you almost convinced yourself that you were doing something wrong. When this realization happened in America, did you start to see cannabis differently? Did it change in your mind's eye from a delinquent act to a heroic act? Did it turn from something wrong into something right?
Yes, I couldn't have put it better myself. Ticking all of those boxes above, everything changed from that moment forward. As I said, well, absolutely, the whole thing just became very legitimized to me, and I really understand its place in the ecosystem. Absolutely. And even now today, when we go back to California, for example, or Canada, we've talked about was recreationally available. It's not bargain booze on the corner with piles of product. It is the seal. It's still the same experience everywhere. Sure, there's better shops, bad shops, but it is the sommelier in a wine shop exists everywhere. And I now take it with the value that comes with a bud tender.
So you were in New York last week,
yes.
Mate, right? You were in New York last week. New York is a relatively new state to legalize cannabis.
Yes.
I think it's been about 6 months or a year. They've only recently legalized cannabis. What was your view of the medical cannabis or of the cannabis system out there? Like, it was also, you've seen California, you've seen Canada, you've seen a lot of these open systems.
Yeah, it is one of those weird things that seem to happen in America where the legislation or the legality comes before the legislation or the regulation exists. So New York is one of these bizarre places where it is recreationally legal, yet you can't buy it. I'm actually not sure where exactly the line is drawn, but there are no shops to buy it from. You'll walk down. I mean, firstly, it stinks like Amsterdam stinks on every corner, everywhere you go. It
always did. I lived there. I used to live there in the 70s. And back then, everyone was half off their face, and
Same thing.
cannabis was
But
the least of it.
But don't smoke a joint in Central Park, because you can't smoke in a park. But outside the park is fine. It is bizarre, and there are kind of these Mexican sort of burrito vans that are graffitied up and overtly selling cannabis, and they move on like ice cream vans. It's a bizarre. It is totally bizarre. I believe there is a medical network there. I just wasn't. I wasn't part of it, really. All I can say is if there are cannabis enthusiasts watching and you fancy a different destination, you would be hard set to pick somewhere else than New York.
But isn't it weird? You see, this has always been my point between the law. Now, I was there in the 70s working on Madison Avenue in advertising.
Studio 54.
Absolutely. Summer of Sam, the Son of Sam, the whole. It was,
Best mate of Andy Warhol, right?
It was, yeah, me and Andy like that.
You and Andy are like this.
We used to hang out in the factory. Me and he said, "What do you think about this?" I said, "Andy, it's a tin of baked beans, mate. Move on."
Andy,
move on. Do
stop your
some
obsession with Marilyn. Stop it, mate. Okay.
Because you're getting on my nerves now. He said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah," and change your wig. Anyway, that's by the by.
He looks like Boris, right?
I don't want to talk about Andy Warhol and me. Stop it. What I was thinking is the way that the law so lags behind what is like the reality. 1976, everyone's off their faces. And as I said, and I'm not going into further details, cannabis was like having a drink of tea. But I wasn't partaking. It just wasn't my thing. It's just not me. But it's so weird. It's taken all these billion years later. Suddenly the law catches up. Like nonsense.
And you know what? Like I said, we could spend a whole nother hour talking about the American system, but federally, it still is illegal. So it's just a complete juxtaposition, and left, right, everywhere you look, you can have two states next to each other that are fully legal, but the act of driving something from one legal state to another legal state is illegal, federally illegal. You will end up in prison.
Don't forget,
it's bizarre.
Don't forget with the Carl Rittenhouse case. One of the charges they brought, I'm not going to go down this diversionary thing, but was he crossed a county line or a state line with the rifle. That was one of the things. Not the shooting. I'm not getting into that one, but just to endorse what you're saying, certain things crossing the line, literally just crossing the state line, is a huge big deal.
They've still got people. They've still got people. Because I was fascinated by this kind of system of it being recreationally available, as in completely fair game. There's no. It's just bizarre that it's recreationally available, yet there are still people incarcerated in New York for cannabis crimes.
But then also it's minuscule amounts as well. There are people in jail for like 4 grams of weed. They've been there for 15 years, and it's just mental that now
they're still not out.
Out.
It's been abolished. The whole thing's been abolished, and what they're really saying, I know I'm not trying to put the world to rights, but what they're really saying is that these people will be let out of jail and will be the first people to obtain legal licenses to sell and distribute cannabis, which ultimately will turn them into multimillionaires. But
and of course, what I'm wondering, of course, is if they will then sue.
But then what happens is, as soon as you're released from jail, you're not released from jail, and it's not like a carte blanche. You're not like they don't expunge you. What they do is they release you, and then you're released as an ex-con. And then if you come near, I've heard this as well.
Record.
But then what happens is, I've heard what Nate's saying, but I've also heard that they're going to let people out with a criminal record, and with a criminal record, you're not allowed to hold a cannabis license. So they're promising these people that they're going to have these licenses, but in reality, the way they're being released from prison is going to ever stop them from ever having that license in the first place. So it's almost like I don't even know what the word is, but connery.
Well, like I said, it's an example of the issues that exist nonetheless.
Nathan,
Chrissy Richards, the answer to your question, it's coming in off the Sahara. That's why everything's covered in sand.
Love that. El Nino.
It's getting whipped in from the Sahara, Chrissy.
So I've got a question for you, Nate. How has cannabis helped you in your life? How has cannabis changed your life? Deep question. We want a deep answer. Deep voice. Deep.
What is he, the Jacques Cousteau of cannabis?
Yeah, exactly.
I just thought I might as well.
it's changed my life in as much as there are many people that I know that suffer from similar conditions to myself, many people that have gone through what I'm calling a debilitating surgery that is ultimately life-changing. And I don't take daily medication. I don't, I say require this surgery. I'm not having this surgery. And through my deep understanding of the plant, and I suppose coming from a position where I'm still somewhat uncomfortable with it, it has allowed me to position what you and I do, I think, really well, because I see it through the eyes of, I use a word that for some reason is demonized, and I'm going to say through corporate business. And I think so my use has profoundly changed the direction of my day-to-day life. I use different cannabis or hemp varieties with different terpene profiles for different things in the day. And I'm not on any of this daily strong painkillers or otherwise, which I have been in the past, and I wear that somewhat as a badge of honor. And I think through all these years, and it's now probably verging on 20 years of pretty much daily involvement with the plant, we talked about earlier serendipity or this, that, and the other thing. I think it's those years of knowledge that's allowed me to come into your slipstream and commercialize a business that I truly understand, that I truly believe in, that I'm really passionate in, and I'm quite open and happy to make profit whilst doing that. And I don't call that a dirty word. So I think
but it's not a dirty word.
No,
let's be grown up about it.
Afraid to talk about that part of it because everyone thinks,
because we're living through the most.
You're right. There is nothing wrong.
Time.
There's nothing wrong with making money. Okay, there's nothing wrong with it. And it's like I've actually told a lot of caregivers over the years, and I've told a lot of people in the industry over the years, the only way you're actually going to maintain this relationship you've got with your patients, the only way you can actually carry on helping people is if you help yourself. Because fact of the matter is you running your life into the ground for this altruistic purpose. It has an end.
What do they tell you on an aircraft? What do they tell you with an aircraft safety briefing?
Brace, brace, brace.
Close.
Sorry, my life.
No, close. When the oxygen masks drop down, look after,
put yours on first.
Put yours on first, so you can help everybody else. Like if you've got kids with you.
If
so
you can't breathe, if you can't breathe, you can't help other people. 1,000,000%.
I think the beauty of the business and where it started, and if I'm honest, without going too personally, although the business is driven by profit, Ollie and myself are in a position whereby profit is a bit of the byproduct of what we do, and I think we're we have the luxury to be in a position that it started as a side business that then became the main business through the hours of the day that it takes to consume. But there's it's a byproduct of helping people, and that's how the business was set up. That's how it is today, and I think that's really been a secret success for what we do.
Where do you see yourself, you and Ollie, being in 3 years' time, 2 years' time?
Well, Ollie developed. I find it very difficult to talk about myself. With my commercial acumen and finger on the pulse to the market, we and I thought we, because we have other business partners, have been able to direct Ollie to develop new range of products which have been developed with nothing but purpose in front of them. So what I'm really saying is that in 3 years' time, there'll be a range of new products developed for a market need that's been identified based on existing stuff, and we'll keep doing what we're doing. I think Ollie may have discussed on a previous call or not, but we as a business have decided to go a little bit more mainstream, which is evolve and start to look at other botanical extracts which the UK is more educated to. So we're working very strongly with mushrooms, adaptogens, other product forms that are botanically extracted and share the same medicinal benefits. So I think that's a long way of answering and saying that Ollie is going to continue in the product development world, create products of purpose, and through creating the products of purpose and understanding the market, that's how we find our clients. It's not the other way around.
So Ollie's really a bit of an alchemist, though, isn't he?
Yeah,
Absolutely. Ollie is, and it's my time to inflate the ego if it needs any more inflating. But
Please don't. Please don't.
Well, we said it from the beginning, really, is, and I didn't like it to start with. Ollie is the Willy Wonka of our chocolate factory. And I didn't like it at the beginning because it makes him and our business sound fantastical and not real. But then it was explained to me that no, Willy Wonka is the mad genius who cares only about creating the best chocolate products he possibly can, with form factors and delivery methods that actually work. And that's what Ollie is. And I'm here to commercialize
His genius.
Yes.
Madness.
Let's cut to. It's not madness. I don't know why you put yourself down like that. What do you?
I don't know. I
Fascinating.
like the
Only
way
you can only
Madness
do
is one
that
of the
on
greatest
MRS.
bands of all time.
You can
Okay,
only do
I'll be
that on
honest with you.
MRS. Let's listen to what Veronica says up in Edinburgh. Veronica Curran. And this is about you being embarrassed about. It's a commercial venture. Well, of course it is. Without people making money, we'd still be no further forward. It's only through a business model we can get enough relevant information and products. It's changed my quality of life. Does it get any better than that? It's changed my quality of life.
Mate. And like I say, that is. Thank you, Victoria, because
Veronica. She'll be upset. She'll get on the train from Edinburgh, come round.
Yeah, she'll kick your ass, mate. Seriously, she knows where we work. She knows where we live.
She's a black
literally
belt
come
in
down and batter
origami.
us.
Dangerous.
Fold a piece of paper and kill you.
Yeah, no. Thank you very much for those comments. I totally agree. And again, it's kind of got to pinch yourself when you think about it. Some of the stories we hear out of products that we have created is amazing.
Veronica uses some of our products. You know, she uses. So first of all, she uses the Activist. So she uses that's a great product for her. I actually send her balms every so often as a little present. So she uses those, which apparently, and Veronica sends me fudge. Hell yeah, she sends me like literally buckets of fudge. You don't understand. We've got like a real friendship, like a proper like she's like my Scottish buddy.
Horses, hippie boy.
I know, ridiculous, isn't it? Never offered you
shit,
did you, Ross?
With Howard Jameson, an entire radio station, and you reap the benefits of fudge.
Dude, and this is not normal fudge.
Veronica, you're banned.
This is like the best fudge in the world. History. It's incredible. So Nathan, realizing the true medical benefits of cannabis, have you left the secret stoner personality at the door? And have you have you embraced the fact that cannabis has changed your life? And do you share that message more? Or are you still, what's the word, a little bit shy and embarrassed about your choice of medication?
I remain as closeted. You know, it's a very difficult environment, particularly because I have young children, because of the stigma that exists in our country with the consumption. And it is bizarre. I was in London Zoo, as it happens, on Saturday with my children. We went for an early lunch. I say early, probably 11:45 at the cafe. And there are plenty of families next to me drinking bottles of wine, beer with their meals, spirits. And I just had a little chuckle to myself that 11:45, it's perfectly acceptable with no stigma attached to be drinking alcohol with your young children, and not casually so before even midday. You're not getting on a flight. And I don't say that with judgment of the person. I say that as an observation that I couldn't whip out a little vape pen, take 2 hits on this vape pen, and carry on my day without a feeling of
am I being judged?
Am I being judged? And I don't. However, I don't have that feeling when I'm in America, where the society is so far more advanced in understanding the things that we've discussed on this call. So yes, I am really closeted, but I suppose being on this call and open about it is not being closeted. But yeah, it's a, you know, there's a social stigma that stops me talking about, I don't really know, but yeah, it's, you know, meanwhile,
I had this last week, by the way. I walked past a pub. I was walking Rusty. I was walking my dog. I walked past a pub, evening joint as usual. And as I walked past the pub, there were a couple of foul-mouthed filth bags outside the pub, pissed off their tits. Like what they're saying to each other is disgusting. And I'm sitting there like, all right, I know what's going to happen. I mean, I'm smoking my joint. I walked past, and all I heard is, that's fucking filthy. And I'm sitting there thinking, I looked at them, and I thought, really? I mean, like, really, the obscenities coming out of your mouth, and I swear a lot. So what they must be saying must
You've
have
been good
horrific,
this show,
right?
anyone.
But I mean, like, it's mental, because you're sitting there and you're like, it is this double standard, and that whole idea of I didn't look at them and be like, you know what, you're degenerates, you're filth, you know. But they looked at me walking my dog, minding my own business, and I'm filth, and it's like that's what we're dealing with in this.
Everyone's a critic. You've upset Victoria Curran, as I'm going to call her from now on.
Hey, Vicky.
Ollie, she's now Vicky Curran. Vicky Curran Bunn.
Vicky Curran, our favourite guest. Our favourite.
You know, we have a lot of favourite guests.
Favourite viewer.
Chrissy Richards saying, you know, she sleeps at night thanks to your products. And Vicky Curran Bunn says, Ollie, the balm is getting raved about. And then she shouts at me, because it's all in capital letters. Russ, check your PM. I asked a month ago where I could send a gift. And it was very sweet of you, but I actually, in all seriousness, I always say it's very kind. Please don't worry. I don't eat sweets.
I'm like, yes.
By the way, gifts. I don't eat sweets for it.
I will take gifts from everyone. If anyone out there listening, you want to send me a gift, even if I don't want the gift, I'll take the gift. Okay. Love me some freebies. I love a bit of swag.
Yeah, and then you recycle them for Christmas presents. We know what you're like. Right, we've only got a very short time.
I've got one more question.
Well,
Nathan,
I'd like to hear it.
Fine, Nathan. What's your view of the current UK industry, and where would you like to see it go?
Blimey, with 3 minutes to go. Yep. There's a huge amount of uncertainty that exists in the UK market, and with uncertainty brings lack of transaction, lack of new things coming to market. And I think, you know, and you have discussed it many times before, but we have a regulation coming in place in the UK, which is very confused in its execution and delivery, called the Novel Food Act, which I think as a piece is extremely important to our industry, gives it the legitimization and compliance that we need, but it's not being looked after properly. There's lots of confusion in market as to what you can and what you can't do. And like I say, with the uncertainty breeds no action. So I think what I'd like to, I'm not sure it's quite the question, but what I'd like to see over the next couple of years is this regulation sort itself out to create a framework of compliant and not compliant products, which brings back certainty, which is what the market needs. And I'll finish by saying education. It's about education. And I think over the next short period of time, 2 years, the market will become more educated, it'll become more accessible, more mainstream, and become a household product.
You answered that quickly, so I've got another question for you.
I'm giving Russ a 2-minute outro.
That's it. I don't need 2 minutes. Thank you. I'm going to go just by. You know, as I always say with everything in life, you want to know what's going on. Follow the money. Eventually, a government of any description will want this revenue. Yeah. I keep banging on about it, and I think at first Ollie thought I was nuts.
No, Russ loves the money. It's all about the money. Send Russ money as a present, and then he'll accept it, right?
Do you know the stats in Canada as to how much tax dollars they brought in through recreational?
Not off the top.
7.8 billion or something, right?
See if I can quickly. I've got a minute to do it, but it's an inordinate amount of money which would solve so much of our national debt.
Of course it would.
Like billions. Billions.
It's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot, and they will eventually want that revenue because it's just going down the drain.
Also, we know how much money a lot of these patients are spending. We know that whole idea of 30 grand a year on cannabis medication is not a lot of money. And that's the one thing. If 30 grand a year is being spent, that's at least 15 grand in tax. It's at least 15 grand in tax.
Of course it is.
Import
So-
duties,
so-
export duties, revenues, and all that sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So
it's
a lot of money.
Tiny, it's a tiny. I've got it here. It's from MJ Biz Daily that Canada's haul from cannabis tax in 2021 was $32 million.
That'll do.
it's not
That'll
bad.
do. And on that bombshell. Right. Nate, it's been a pleasure.
Thank
Ollie,
you.
always an honor. And please God, we'll be back next Thursday,
you,
6
Russ.
o'clock.
We all love you.
more. Bye, gang.
Thank you.
Mwah.